Hey there riders, MotoJourno Chris here today, and I've got Z650. This is the updated 2020 model and Yamaha's MT-07, which hasn't seen a recent update, but this is the most up-to-date version. And I thought I'd have a bit of a chat about the two bikes. Now, starting with the Z650, obviously parallel twin. It's got 300mm disc brakes on the front, 2 piston calipers, LED headlights. It's got a TFT display, 15-litre tank, and it's got a couple of other notable features in the adjustable levers on the front. It's got a 160 rear section tyre, and of course, as you can see here, it's got really aggressive styling. Now, in comparison on the MT-07, I feel like even though it's very much also a Street Fighter styled machine, it's a little bit less extreme on the styling, particularly the headlight. And the headlight is one area that a lot of people will really, come back to and go, I either love it or I hate it. And that might be the reason they won't buy a bike. Now on the MT-07, you're actually getting, quite a traditional headlight. And I do like the fact that on the Z650, you're getting an LED headlight. They give a lot better throw of light, which is a real advantage. One thing to keep in mind with this particular bike is there are quite a few mods on it. It's got the aftermarket exhaust, the Acro exhaust available through Yamaha. It's got the comfort seat, it's got crash protection, it's got billet levers, it's got quite a few things on it, including the screen on the front. Now, this is a very, very popular learner machine, of course, because it's been around a long while and they've always done a great job with it. There is non-adjustable suspension on the front, just like on the Z650, but the MT-07 adds rebound adjustability to that rear shock. One other thing to keep in mind is the fact this has a 14-litre tank, but both of these bikes are extremely fuel efficient, and that is really going to help if you're using them on a daily basis. The screen on the front of this is not standard fitment, unlike that little mini screen on the Z650, so a small point of difference there. Another thing to keep in mind, the brakes on the MT-07, 4-piston calipers. Those are the Yamaha calipers you see on the Supersport machines. It's a smaller disc rotor than on the Z650. The MT-07 also has the cross-plane parallel twin in it. This is the 655cc version, which is unique to Australia. It's a special LAMS legal version instead of a restricted version of the 689cc version that is found in other places of the world. And it's a beautiful power plant. They've done an exceptional job with it. Building one specifically for the Australian market certainly helped. Now compare that to the Z650. Once again, you're getting a parallel twin. 650cc's, there's not much between them as far as capacity. From memory, the MT-07 is 46 horsepower. I think Kawasaki are claiming 51 on the Z650. Now, when it comes to the Z650 and MT-07, there's a significant difference in the direction that Kawasaki and Yamaha went with the engine characteristics of these bikes, despite both being parallel twins and similarities in overall specification. The Z650 is all refinement with ultra smooth fueling and a slick gearbox for effortless shifting, while a slipper clutch carries that across to the engine braking alongside a light clutch feel. That linear power delivery and great fueling push the feel of the bike more towards that inline 4 type of characteristic, with parallel twin torque and a wide range of usable torque and power, with good pickup from down low. In comparison, the crossplane MT-07 offers a more raw feel and has a bit more punch at the expense of that refinement, while also lacking a slipper clutch, and the gearbox is on the clunky side, not that that affects engagement or shifting. Think more similar to a V-twin without the overly aggressive engine braking and not quite as torquey, while the test bike I've had was fitted with the Acro exhaust, which is meant to add a bit of torque as well as some decent weight savings. The big difference here really comes down to personal preference, and interestingly is the exact opposite of the Kawasaki and Yamaha smaller capacity offerings. The Ninja 400 in comparison is the more raw, punchy model, and the R3 is all refinement and linear power generation. The Z650 definitely prefers to be revved out, where the MT-07 offers a meaty mid-range before dropping off, compared to the Kawasaki peaking higher in the revs and holding out a bit stronger as you head to the red line. The MT-07 holds an edge in the braking department on bite and power in my opinion, with those 4-piston calipers offering a clear advantage in this department, at least with stock pads, where the Z650's brakes are gentler on both bite and power. With that said, I had no complaints about the Z650 setup, and I think it will be more forgiving to new riders. This also matches the Z650's more linear power generation and rev characteristic, where I found myself keeping the bike on the boil more through the corners compared to being heavier on the more powerful brakes on the MT-07 and then punching out of the corners. Both bikes feature ABS as standard, and I didn't find any signs of the systems being overly sensitive, although I think it would be harder to get ABS activation on that Kawasaki in normal riding conditions, and I'd always recommend going for ABS if it's an option. Sitting on the Z650 actually reveals a very compact feeling bike, which matches the overall style and that connection to the Z900, which for a larger capacity machine carries the same feel. While slightly heavier than the MT-07, the Z650 feels light and manageable on board, with a compact reach to the pegs, but a very upright seating position as you'd expect from a naked bike. Comparing the bike to the MT-07, the bars do seem lower and more angled back to the rider, while that shorter seat and the step up to the pillion seat means moving back in the seat isn't as possible, which is a roominess factor. The Z650L is also a lower seat height than the Yamaha by 15mm, and extremely narrow between the legs, proving even more inviting for shorter riders who may find the MT-07 slightly too tall. The MT-07 in comparison feels more like a traditional full-size naked bike, despite there not being an enormous difference between the two machines, with slightly higher and wider bars and more room to move around on the rider seat. The smaller overall weight isn't particularly noticeable, despite the MT-07 being one of the lightest bikes in the category, with both machines ideal for new riders as far as a first motorcycle, if slightly more challenging than the smaller capacity options in those early stages of learning. On the suspension side of things, both bikes offer non-adjustable front forks, which I found well sorted for me at 70 kilos, although I do have to note that this tends to put me in the ideal range envisaged for many of these machines. The MT-07 feels a little more forgiving at the rear than the Z650, however there's a couple of points to note here, starting with the aftermarket exhaust lightening the rear on the Yamaha, which can have a noticeable effect on the rear shock performance. Also, the MT-07 offers rebound adjustment and may have been adjusted, where the Z650 was straight out of the box and I didn't have a chance to play around with the preload offered. On the smoother roads this wasn't as noticeable, but here in Australia the roads are often atrocious and the MT-07 was less harsh over the big bumps. Both bikes are a pleasure to ride, with the Z650's quite compact feel carrying across to the overall handling, which reminds me of a smaller capacity, light sports bike, and did feel sharper and a bit more fast turning than the MT-07, no doubt helped by the narrower rear wheel, and was noticeable as soon as jumping on board, even just around town. That's particularly interesting considering I've always found the MT-07 a light and responsive machine to jump onto, regardless of what else I've been riding, with the Z650 seeming to take that feeling a little further. Does one bike stand out as better to me? In all honesty, no. There's points that stand out on each, and as I said earlier, the personal preference around engine characteristic may be the deciding factor for some riders. Although if you're looking for your first bike and don't have any background in this area, you probably haven't developed a preference yet. On the Z650, the finish quality is exceptional, as is the styling in my opinion, with the LED headlight and TFT display both a standout, while fueling certainly has the edge on the smoothness factor, and the slightly lower seat height will cater to shorter riders. In comparison, the MT-07 offers a bit more seat space and the crossplane engine is renowned, if offering a more raw feel than the Z650, while those front brakes certainly hold an advantage. Both of these machines are so much fun to take through the twisties. They really are exceptional machines. Whether you're a beginner rider looking for a premium machine in that 650cc category, or whether you're a returning rider who wants a really good everyday ride, which is kind of going to do everything, you know, great fuel economy, pretty good comfort. The comfort seat helps on the MT-07. It's an unfair comparison because that's the stock seat on the Z650, but that was not too bad today in the hours I spent on the bike, and just overall they're really fun machines. If you can't make up your mind, I definitely recommend going and sitting on the MT-07, sitting on the Z650, see if there's any difference between how the ergonomics fit you as a person. And of course, one of the really important things, particularly if you're buying one of these bikes new, is buy the one that you like the look of. You're probably going to be spending a couple of years with the bike, and they're very distinct machines as far as the styling, and that's something again that I really like. They've both done a great job on the styling, but they've taken very different directions as far as the overall styling and how they've finished the bike. So if you've got any questions about these particular machines, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer your questions. As always, stay safe out there, don't forget to sub, and thanks for watching.